Alright, so today we are...
Traffic 2 minutes prior till jumpers away over Monroe. Use caution. Skydivers in 2 minutes, 14.5 and below. Use caution.
Today we are going to fly down to Thomaston and we're going to shoot two approaches, one RNAV on the 30 and one ILS. And we are going to test out our autopilot and the new G5s to make sure that all that stuff is working properly. So right now we're letting it warm up a little bit. It's not really going to need much warming up because it's already 80 degrees outside. So today the goal is to see how far the autopilot can actually fly the approach, because I haven't ever had, I got about a half a tank of gas in our mains. I haven't ever had an autopilot that would shoot the entire approach, but in theory this thing should do that.
Monroe traffic jumpers away over Monroe. Use caution. Skydivers in the air, 14.5 and below.
Trim tabs set, fuel pumps are on, free and clear. Go ahead and get our tail wheel locked here.
Monroe traffic in the air, left down, left base. Runway.
Oil pressures and fuel pressures are good. Oil pressure, fuel pressure is good. Air speed's alive. Gear brakes and gears up. 120.
And manifest from here.
Pull it back to 30 inches.
I need someone to look and
to
see if my right wheel is down. The light's not coming on.
2,000 RPM.
About there it went. Light came on.
And what we're going to do, right now is we're going to hit the heading flag on our, actually I'm going to hit nav on our GPS, which should,
okay, if the light came on, it just wasn't coming on at first.
which should get the airplane hunting the course, because we're a little bit left of course right now, so it's going to fly and intercept.
Monroe traffic, rider 1 Mike Golf, traffic left downwind 21, Monroe.
Intercept over to where we want to go. So I'm going to go up here to our flight plan now, and I'm going to hit procedures, and we're going to go to approach, and we're going to shoot the ILS runway 30 approach, and we will shoot it from Bowling. Let's see, let's just shoot it from OP, add the route. Alright, so we've got the approach in our approach plate. Our altitude, we've got to be at 3,000 feet initially for this, or no, I'm sorry, we're at 2,400 feet for this approach. So right now the airplane is getting itself on our nav course. And at about 2,400 feet, I'm going to hit altitude. So now we have altitude and the nav set for the approach. Now, for some reason, and it holds its altitude, but for some reason, occasionally mine, I've got to get my servos adjusted just a little bit because the trim actually hunts a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and pull this back to 1900 RPM, about 27 inches. And so right now what is happening is the GPS or the G5 through that GAD 29 box is telling the autopilot what to do. Now, actually, I think what's happening now is the 750, it's running off a nav, which is on GPS. So this thing's actually following the nav course on the 750. The problem is that doing that, when we get down here to shoot the approach, it's not going to do GPS steering. And so what we're going to want to do down here is we want to get the G5 set to fly off the GPS steering, and then we are going to trying to figure out here why the right engine cylinder head temperatures appear to be so high. That's my number 6 cylinder. So I'm going to take a look out here, make sure we're not blowing any oil anywhere. Everything looks fine, but my EGTs and my I know what it is. I'm being retarded. I had it on normalized mode when I was running it up, and I forgot to change it off. So everything is good. So now what we're going to do is we're on Thomaston's CTAF, so we'll call them in a minute. But right now, we're headed, actually, I don't know what it's doing right now because I've got it on nav and it's flying us to OPN. So what we're going to do now is on here, I've got to load the approach. So we're going to do an approach, we're going to shoot the ILS 30 approach, and we're going to tell it that we're going to shoot it from Yates. Load and activate the approach. And so now at this point, the system needs to turn to the left to get us headed over here to our initial approach fix. And then what we'll do from there is we will be turning outbound on the initial approach fix. So, but like I said, the problem that you have right now is we're flying nav, and the system can't do the GPS steering stuff on nav. And so what we're going to do, we're going to try this. We're going to come up here to our G5, and we're going to tell it that we want to, I don't remember if it's
90 seconds till skydivers over Thomaston, 90 seconds left skydivers
over Thomaston. Here, yeah. So on the top G5, we're going to tell it that we're going to do GPSS, which is GPS steering. And so the problem we're going to have when we do this, though, is that the bug down here is what we want to start following. And so I'm going to come up here, and we're going to tell this that we're in GPS steering mode, and then I'm going to put this in heading mode. So we put our autopilot in heading mode and altitude, so it's holding altitude and heading. We got a lot of smoke up here in front of us. And so now, theoretically, if everything works the way it's supposed to, we should fly the approach and have the airplane fly the entire procedure turn and everything. In theory, that's what's supposed to happen. So we're going to see if that's actually actually what is going to happen. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to see if the autopilot will do GPS steering using the G5. It's supposed to work. Right now, it's at least tracking us on our inbound course, so there is good news there. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beach is about 10 miles north of Yates, and we're going to be shooting the ILS runway 30 approach into Thomaston.
You following me down here, Glenn?
I always follow you.
Man, that was quick for you to get down here because you weren't even started up when I took off.
It doesn't take long to warm things up on an 80-degree day.
Yeah.
Alright, so to brief the approach plate, we're going to be turning outbound at 121 degrees, flying outbound, doing our procedure turn. We're doing all that at 2,400 feet. Once we start inbound on the ILS, we can come down to 2,200 feet. We stay at 22 till we get to Yates, and then we follow the glide slope on down. So
4301 is 2 miles to the north, left downwind, 11 Cochrane.
And what we're going to attempt to do is once we get established inbound on the ILS, then I'm going to put the autopilot into approach mode, which is what arms the glide slope and everything so that it starts tracking it. So we'll stay on GPSS the whole time, at least I think. We may have to do this a couple times to figure this out.
Cochrane, Curtis traffic. 301 is left downwind, 11, touch and go, Cochrane.
And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beach is about 3 miles north of Yates, and we'll be turning outbound for the ILS 30 approach into Thomaston. Alright, so we can come down to 996 feet. So one of the things I'm going to do here is I'm going to come over here to altitude, and I'm going to enter in 1,000 feet here. I don't know, I'll have to figure out how to put in exactly 996. So I've got my altitude armed at 1,000 feet, so once we get around to our final approach, the G5 ought to start blinking. Now, right about now, we ought to be making a left turn, and as soon as that thing said to turn left, it's turning left, so this is, again, a good sign. The big thing here is when we get to the procedure turn, it needs to make that right-hand turn to do our procedure turn, and that's what I'm hoping works out correctly. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beach is procedure turn outbound on the ILS 30 approach in Thomaston.
Cochrane traffic, 301 turning final, 11, Cochrane, touch and go.
Alright, so at this point, we ought to fly for a minute. Ought to fly for a minute or so outbound before it starts a right-hand turn to do the procedure turn. It's got the procedure turn highlighted here. It's telling us to turn, so, and it is, well, it looks like it, yep. So it's starting our procedure turn. So far it's doing perfect. Oil pressures and fuel pressures are all good.
Cedar Town, 7 Mike Bravo, right base 10. Numbers over Cedar Town, Polk County, right base to final 28 Cedar Town, Polk County.
And what I don't know is when I flip this into approach, I'm not real sure what's going to happen over here on the G5 given the fact that it's in GPSS mode, because GPSS mode only works in heading mode on the autopilot. So when I put it into approach mode, that flips it to nav and approach, and I may end up needing to turn that off, but hopefully it's going to disengage itself and we won't have to worry about it. Alright, so right now it should start a left-hand turn back around to pick up the other side of our procedure turn. It is doing perfect.
I'm just now turning final, about 2 miles out, coming out of the north side. You're already off and running? Go ahead and land. I can hold. I'll make another circle out here. Okay, no problem. I'll slow it down.
So we're going to go ahead and get our fuel pumps on. I'm going to go ahead and pull this thing back to about 20 inches. Get everything about 21 inches or so.
West.
Alright, so now we're inbound.
Going to the real ITM.
It's actually flying us away from our fix at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and hit approach now. And I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to hit approach and see what happens here. I want to hit vertical speed and I want to come down to 2,200 feet. So once we get to 2,200 feet, I will stop it there. It's kind of funny, but I can't see the airport because of all this smoke out here. Alright, so we're at 2,200 feet. I got the airport. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beach is procedure turn inbound, ILS 30 approach, Thomaston. So we're at 2,200 feet. We got to watch our speed. The glide slope is armed, so I did not have to take it out of GPS steering mode. I'm going to go ahead and go full mixtures. We're coming up on Yates, and at Yates I'm going to put the gear down. I'm going to throw our synthetic vision up here. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beach is 5 mile final, runway 30, Thomaston. Alright, so we're crossing Yates. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and put the gear down. Got green light on the gear. Glide slope is coming in. Localizer is tracking pretty good. Glide slope is in.
10 miles to the west, crossing midfield and your left downwind, runway 14.
So it's tracking down the glide slope. A little bit left of course on the... So we're looking for 1,000 feet, 996 feet, but we'll call it 1,000. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beach is 3 mile final, runway 30, Thomaston. The speed's looking good. Glide slope is tracking. We're a little fast, and we'll pull it back to 20. 20 inches seems to work the best once you get coming down the glide slope. So it's holding the glide slope. tracking a little bit left. I think that's kind of normal because every time I come in here, I'm always a little bit left. Not sure why. All right, so we are at 1,200 feet. Looking for runway. 1,200 feet. 1,100 feet. We're going to go ahead and get the gear up. We'll add a little bit of power here. All right, we're going to take the autopilot off. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beaches, missed approach, runway 30, Thomaston. We'll push her on up here to about 28 inches. I'm not in a huge hurry to climb. So now we're going to activate the missed approach. I'm assuming that I'm going to go back into heading mode here. So what we're supposed to do is climb straight ahead to 3,000 feet. Go ahead and put vertical speed in here and put about 400 foot a minute. So our missed approach is straight ahead 1,500 feet and then left turn to 3,000 feet direct to OP. So we're just going to turn around and go back direct to OP. So we're at 1,500 foot. The airplane's starting a left-hand turn on its own. We're continuing to climb. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beach is going missed approach, and we're going to come back around and shoot another RNAV 30 approach to Thomaston. So we're continuing to climb, and I'm going to stop the climb at 24 just because there's no reason to waste the effort today. Go ahead and turn off the fuel pumps. All right, so we're still in GPSS. We never took it out. I went back to heading after I got the thing climbing again.
Monroe, Walton County traffic.
I did a missed approach on the 750. Reactivated the heading and altitude on the autopilot. And so far, the airplane is flying the missed approach on its own. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and arm the autopilot to shoot another approach. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back over here. We're going to go back to our procedures, ILS, and we're going back to Yates, and we're going to load and activate. And go back to our map. And so now what we should do here.
Thomaston traffic, Cherokee 5177 Whiskey departing runway 30, Thomaston.
Is we should stop our altitude here at 2,400 feet. I want to pull back our extras to about, our throttles to about 25 inches.
There's a coyote about midfield, just off the right side of the runway there.
We got the whole, from what I understand, the up and down thing is my autopilot is a little too sensitive on my trim. And so it's trimming a little bit more than it needs to correct things, and it ends up over trimming, causing the thing to dive. and then it fixes it by over trimming back up, and it takes it a minute to get itself back straight. It does eventually fix itself, but it's a little bit irritating. So I've got to take it back to the shop and get that tweaked. All right, so one thing we want to do here is I wanted to actually shoot the RNAV instead of the ILS. So let's go back over here, and we're going to change this to RNAV, and we'll do it from, let's see, what we got here. Go back over here.
Bravo County traffic, Cessna 5704 Romeo. Exit pattern straight out, runway.
RNAV 30, but shoot it from Hutzer. So we'll go to Hutzer, load and activate. Alright, and we'll ignore that, add the route. Alright, so
traffic, Cherokee 5177 Whiskey departing to the southwest, Thomaston.
So what we've got to do right now is we flew over Yates, but we're going to fly out here to Hutzer, and it's going to be interesting because it's going to have to make a 360, I mean not a 360, but it's going to have to make a pretty sharp turn to get back around. We're actually flying outbound.
Whiskey
So
Gate 58 Whiskey Kilo 1 northwest of field 3000, transitioning northeast Tuskegee.
Coleman traffic, 2 minutes of skydivers over Coleman, 15,000 and below, 2 minutes of skydivers over Coleman.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to fly out to Hutzer, then we're going to turn back inbound to Sinfo, fly outbound on our procedure turn again, and then turn back in for our approach. And again, on that last approach, the only thing that I did with this thing in GPS steering mode, yeah.
Switch over 2345.
All right. What's up?
Yep.
Yeah.
What's your tail number on that bird?
41289.
Yeah, I'll see it. Just looking at the ADSB, I see you now.
Yeah, I'm going to shoot this RNAV, and then I think I'm going to fly over to Shepherd.
Okay, I'm heading back to Seven Lakes.
All right, we'll see you in a bit.
See ya.
All right, so now what's going to have to happen is this thing's going to make a pretty sharp turn here, so we'll see if the GPS steering is smart enough to make that turn before it has to hunt back for it, and it looks like it is.
Southwest of the field at 2,600.
I like it, man.
We're transitioning further to the southwest.
This thing is working awesome. I was a little worried about putting electronic instruments in here for my primary stuff, but I have to say that I am pleasantly surprised. Because it is really nice to have GPS steering in here without actually having to upgrade my autopilot.
Jackson County traffic, Skyhawk 32 Lima, 10 miles to the northeast of the airport, 3,500.
All right, so fuel and oil pressures are still good. Oil temps are good. Cylinder and everything's good. Now that I took it off normalized mode. All right, so now we're tracking to Sinfo, and at Sinfo, we ought to be doing a procedure turn. It's a little weird on this 750 because I would think it would be a parallel procedure turn here, but it doesn't say that when it arms itself. I can't remember. I think it actually tells it that it's a direct approach or a direct entry, but we'll see what it says here in a minute. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beach is Sinfo outbound for the procedure turn for the RNAV 30 Thomaston. All right, so we're at 2,400 feet. We're coming down again to, let's see. We can come down to 996 feet again. We're going to be going down to 2,200 feet after we get established inbound, and then wait for the RNAV glide slope and stuff to pick up and start following the glide slope down. And again, once I get inbound, I hit the approach button over here, and that's what arms the actual approach.
Central aircraft, 2 minutes, jumping on Marion County, 14.
And you may be able to arm that approach now and have it fly all of it, but I'm not sure. And it flies it perfectly well doing this, so one day when I have more time, I may come down here and shoot another approach with and try to arm it from the very beginning. But there's nothing wrong or complicated about doing what I'm doing. All right, so now we are going to fly outbound. I don't know, I guess it does that just because of the 750, but it has us come all the way back around and get established outbound on the RNAV, and then we come back around for a entry. So
target traffic, Skyhawk 55210 is 9 miles southeast northwestbound at 4,000.
Same process, yes, doesn't really matter. All right, so we're 2,400 feet. We got everything set up. We'll turn the fuel pumps and stuff on here in a minute.
Jackson County traffic, Skyhawk 32 Lima, 5 miles to the northeast, currently in the area northeast to southwest at 3,500 feet, Jackson.
All right, so now we're doing our procedure turn inbound. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beaches, procedure turn inbound on RNAV 30 Thomaston. All right, now we get our intercept angle back over to pick up the localizer.
Center, all aircraft jumpers are in the air over Marion County, 14,000 feet below, use caution.
Go ahead and get our fuel pumps on.
American traffic area 7659 Juliet, 5 miles to the northeast.
We'll pull us back to about 20 inches, 21 inches. Mixtures are going to go full. Now the glide slope is starting to come in. I mean the localizer. Now we're picking up the localizer, turning inbound. So at this point, I'm going to do vertical speed
County traffic, Avalon 832 Whiskey Papa.
down to 2,200 feet.
We'll set up for a left downwind, 121.7 Jackson County.
I'll go ahead and switch back over here to our main tanks. We're almost at 2,200 feet.
6,200 for 11,000 skydiving. Switching to Jack Center. Over Statesboro.
So we're at 2,200 feet, so we're going to arm the altitude, hold us at 22. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beach is Sinfo inbound on the RNAV 30 approach, about 11 mile final. All right, so we're at 2,200 feet. I'm going to go ahead now and arm the approach. We're at Sinfo.
Enterprise, Lear, 40 Pop Charlie. About 25 miles southwest heading Enterprise. Traffic, please advise.
And technically speaking, we would normally shoot this at 3,000 feet, so a little lower than you would actually do this. I just didn't want to climb to 3,000 today just to test the autopilot. So right now we are past Sinfo. We're waiting on Pumo next is our final approach fix.
40 Pop Charlie, thank you, sir.
That's the point that we will put our gear down and start tracking the glide slope. So right now, speed is good. We're on main tanks, got the fuel pumps on. Holding about 120 miles an hour, which is our blue line.
Traffic, Mike Bravo, turning final 28, Cedar Town.
So technically, when you're up until we hit the glide slope, 21 or 22 inches is probably a better setting for us at that point.
Eligible traffic, helicopter 211, we on top of 5 miles south, transitioning south to north, 1,800, eligible.
The fuel pressures and oil pressures and temps are all good, and everything's in the green.
Dutch County traffic, have an 832 whiskey pops is on 45 for 11, the field downwind, 17 Jack.
We're almost to Pumo.
For traffic, I think 595 kilo whiskey is 20 miles southwest, landing 7
1.5 miles to Pumo. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beach is Pumo inbound, about 5 mile final, runway 30 Thomaston. All right. So now we are over Pumo. We'll go ahead and get our gear down as soon as we see the glide slope come in here. Go ahead and get the gear down. So, gotta watch the speed. Don't want to have the gear come down before it starts tracking the glide slope because it'll get too slow. All right, so now we're tracking the glide slope inbound. Fuel pumps are on. We'll pull it back at this point to about 20 inches. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beaches, 3 mile final, runway 30, Thomaston. Gears down and locked. Fuel pumps are on. Everything's in the green. Autopilot is tracking. We're looking for 1,000 foot or 996 feet. Got the synthetic vision over here tracking us inbound. We're looking for, we're at 1,500 feet. Looking for 1,000. $1,400 feet. 120 on the speed. 125. Props. We're gonna leave alone. We're 1260. Still tracking. We're 1160. 1120, 1100. 1,000 right there, so 996. So we're going to go ahead and do this. Altitude holder. Actually, we want to do vertical speed. Activate missed approach. And Thomaston traffic, Twin Beaches, missed approach. Thomaston. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get the gear up, get the fuel pumps off. For anyone curious, GPS steering normally is something that you have to have installed on the autopilot that allows the autopilot to fly the airplane like we just did, where it flies the entire approach, holding patterns, procedure turns, whatever it is that the GPS is telling you to do, the GPS or the autopilot does it. The problem is like I've got an Stec 55 and it doesn't have GPS steering, and so there's no way for it to fly exactly to where the autopilot says, or where the 750 is telling it to fly. So what's happening now is I've got the G5s installed, and they have the ability to output GPS steering to the autopilot, and the way that it does it is it changes the bug on the HSI. It basically is like me sitting here and turning the bug to make the airplane fly the pattern that it's supposed to do. But instead of me having to sit here and manually move the bug to tell it what the direction I want to turn, the GPS steering mode causes the HSI to give the information to the autopilot directly via the heading changes. And so it allows an autopilot that doesn't have GPS steering to act like it has GPS steering using the G5. So it's pretty awesome to be able to do that, because normally, well, never before have I been able to actually fly a full approach like that and have the airplane fly the approach for me. I'm normally having to do most of the work myself. So that's a pretty awesome feature to have in advance, and another advantage to having the G5s, where I'm not just getting a digital HSI and artificial horizon. I'm also getting a lot of other little things that come along with it.